I set up at a 3-day Christmas market. It's similar to a vintage market days. And over those 3 days, I made $2,200 selling wood crafts. And most of these projects came from tutorials inside my Woodcraft Blueprints membership. Today, I'm breaking down what sold, my pricing strategy, and the biggest lessons I learned about booth setup and display. So if you've ever thought about doing craft markets or you want to know which wood projects actually make money, this video is for you. First, let me tell you about the show a little bit because it's not your typical craft fair. This is a curated, juried show, meaning not everyone gets in. It's not just because whoever can pay a booth fee gets to set up. So like I said, it's very similar to vintage market days, and it's designed to be a shopping experience, not just a craft fair. People pay admission to get in just to shop there. It's $10 a person Friday and Saturday and $5 per person on Sundays. And there are a few thousand people that show up every day. They had Santa photos, live reindeer, food trucks. It's a destination event, and it's a lot of fun. I had a 10 by 20 booth, which cost about $300 for the weekend, so $100 per day. And I actually paid a little bit more so I could have electricity because I'm not going to sit there with a dead phone. My battery never lasts that long if I'm on it a lot during the day. You know, $300 sounds like a lot, but I made that back within the first couple hours on Friday. Usually if you have a high booth fee, it's because there's a lot of people, a lot of attendees that are going to be there. Well, let me walk you through my booth setup because display matters just as much as your products. Let me repeat that. Your display matters just as much as your products. And the backdrop is one of the most important elements. So my backdrop, I created these custom wood stands out of 2x4s. They're self-standing. And then I connect 1x6s on the back. And then I put shiplap panels on those 1x6s. And yes, I miscounted my boards when I was loading up and I had to make an emergency trip to Home Depot, run in the middle of setup. But hey, it's real life, it happens. And once that frame is up, I hang sheets of that white shiplap paneling. It's just wall paneling I get from Home Depot. It's like $35 a sheet, I think. But this creates just a nice, clean, professional background that makes everything pop. I have a lot of wood stained stuff in my booth, so I don't want a brown background. I want something white to offset all of my wood toned items. This year I'm planning on adding more panels to the bottom just because now I have extras and I think it will look even better. The key is having some kind of backdrop rather than just a bare venue wall behind you or a bunch of random stuff behind you. You don't want to see the back of somebody else's display. Like, you need your own nice clean backdrop. And for the rest of my display, I use things like I have an old oak folding table. I use that as my checkout counter. I have 2 Christmas trees, faux Christmas trees I bought at garage sales for super cheap, and I can hang ornaments on there. I also use it for height and visual interest. No, the trees really aren't for sale, but it's just part of the display. I also brought my collapsible wooden shelves, and I have free plans for these on my blog, and a lot of my members have made these as well because they're just easy to transport and they go up nice and tall. I also brought, a few small vintage style tables just to kind of, work in that aesthetic. Plus, I had a barrel that I set a Christmas tree on to really get some height, and just different risers to create different levels. The key is creating height variation. You don't want everything flat on one level. Your customers' eyes need to move up and down. This keeps them engaged and helps them see more products. I also made sure my booth looked cohesive. Everything, all of my stuff, it has like a rustic farmhouse Christmas vibe. And when your booth looks like it belongs together, it reads more professional and people are more willing to pay your prices. All right, let's talk numbers. On Friday morning when they opened the doors, it was insane. Hardcore shoppers were there in that first hour. It was chaos. And one thing that sold really well right away were these scroll saw angels. So these were actually one of my top sellers all weekend, but I sold several on Friday alone. And this pattern you can purchase on my digital Etsy store. It's also in my membership, so it's free to members. The 2x4 Christmas tree. I also sold a lot of these on Friday. I did $30 for a 3-foot, $40 to $45 for a 4-foot tree, and I sold multiple sizes throughout the day. I have free plans for these. I'll put the link in the description. I also sold a lot of these hot cocoa caddies. In fact, I sold out on Friday. I had these at $28 each. I did stage them with some cookies and some mugs, although they were for sale separately if somebody wanted to purchase the mugs, but I completely sold out on Friday. And I had a few of these half finished at home. I just really hadn't finish them. I just ran out of time. So that Friday night, I went home and I stenciled more to bring those on Saturday. Also, a good seller on Friday were these lighted Christmas trees. This is a project inside my membership, but I sold 2 of these within the first 10 minutes. And yes, there are lights inside of there, and I did have them plugged in so the customer could see exactly what they look like. I also sold a lot of nativity scenes, and these really sold consistently all weekend. Plus in my booth, I had some small signs, printable designs I had made, so I just printed them, glued them to wood blocks, and priced them at, around $5. So those were impulse buys that added up. Now on Saturday was the biggest day. I sold $1,000 on that day. But here's something crazy. I sold $620 in the first 2 hours. So the place was just packed. More angels. This is like one of the first things that sold on Saturday. I continue to sell the hot cocoa caddies like crazy. I was super glad that I brought those freshly stenciled ones in. I also sold my herringbone Christmas trees. I still sold a lot of the 2x4 Christmas trees. And here's something interesting. People were asking for more white ones. So I went home Friday night. So I already had a few that were brown and green that I painted. I dry brushed those white and brought them Sunday, and they sold immediately. People love seeing that white rustic look, you know what I mean? This one is painted white and then sanded. You can also stain it and then dry brush white on there to get a really nice rustic look. I also sold my big barn stars. That's a membership tutorial. I sold 2. It's a funny story. I sold 2 to the same person. She bought 1, went home, hung it up on their porch. And then her mother-in-law came back to buy the second one because she hung one up, decided she wanted a set of them, and so her mother-in-law came back for that, so that was cool. I also sold my joy trees, is what I call them. I sold those at $50 each. This is a membership tutorial. These joy trees were popular all weekend. Pay attention to what customers are asking for and be willing to pivot. These white trees, they weren't even planned, but I listened to customer feedback and it paid off. On Sunday, I made $650, even though Sunday is usually slower. You get more tire kickers and people coming in after church, eating the food trucks, just kind of browsing. Here's what I do differently on Sunday. I make some price adjustments. Instead of making a big sale sign, which can look tacky, I just took a marker and crossed out prices on some specific items, just, writing the new lower price. For instance, I had a snowman porch leaners and I started off about $60, and I noticed people kept looking at them but not buying. So that is a signal that it's probably priced a little bit too high. So I marked those down. I had 2 of them, then they both sold immediately. I also had some of these Christmas card holders, these little slots to put your Christmas cards in. I had these marked at $40, and then I had a lot of lookers but no buyers, so I marked those down to $35, and then I sold both of them. And in the last hour of the show, I personally would tell customers, hey, everything's an additional 20% off the marked price. And that, I think, helped seal several last minute deals because I don't really want to take this stuff home, so I just was like, hey, if you're interested, everything's 20% off right now. Here's a pricing lesson. If people are looking at something, a lot of people are looking at it, touching, admiring it, but walking away, the price could be too high. So just lower the price a little bit and hopefully you watch it sell. And on the flip side, if something is flying off the shelves, maybe you could have priced it a little higher. So there's always that too. Here are some booth management tips that make a huge difference. Work your booth every hour. I would stand up and just rearrange. If the item's sold, you need to fill that hole in because you don't want a bunch of visible spots. You can create new product groupings or stand things up that fell over. But think like a retail store, you have to face your shelves. You bring stuff out, you rotate it around. Also, customer interaction. So I'm not super chatty at shows. I like to smile, say hi, acknowledge people, but I don't force small talk because for me, it gets exhausting after a day of it. I don't like being bothered while I shop, and sometimes people browse better without pressure. So Sunday when it was slower, I'd mentioned the discount, but Saturday when it was packed, really just stayed in my corner and let the display do the selling. Pricing display makes a huge difference too. I use a label maker. This is a Nelco label maker I got off Amazon, and I print professional price tags and then I put them on craft paper sheets just like this. And it looks so much better than a handwritten sticker. Some items I might handwrite, but if I have the time, I try to print them off. I think it looks better. Also, bags. This is just a funny story. I never had bags before, and then I noticed people started asking for them. So I last minute ordered some. They didn't show up Friday. I got them Saturday. So Friday I had some burlap bags that I had left over from something else. I was using those as bags and people went crazy over them. They were like, this bag is so cute, thank you. So sometimes accidents work in your favor. Now I'm doing another Christmas show coming up soon, and here's where it gets exclusive. My members are getting full behind the scenes access that won't be on YouTube. Inside the membership, they'll see my complete booth setup from start to finish, a detailed breakdown of what sells every day, my exact pricing strategy and how I adjust on the fly, marketing tactics that I use before and during the show, and just what worked, what flopped, and real numbers. So if you want the deeper training on how to actually make money at craft shows, that's happening inside the membership along with beginner-friendly project tutorials. So if you are a member, you get 3 new projects every month and that community of over 1,000 makers already selling their work. The link is in the description. I would love to have you. And if you found this helpful, subscribe for more. But if you want the full deep dive, that's inside the membership. Now, let's go make some sawdust fly, and I'll see you in the next one.